Hello. All right, how are you?
All right, how can I help you?
I'm here to see Anthony Manzo.
Oh, you're a current Wake County employee?
I'm one of the substitute teachers.
All right. Can you get your sign right there, please?
You may.
That employee badge right inside the building.
Okay. What's 2 o'clock? Okay.
You know how to get up to his office or to employee relations?
I know how to get in employee relations at least, yes.
Yeah, then they'll get you where you want.
Okay. Thank you. Hello. Oh, I'm hanging in there. How are you?
Doing great. Doing
Good.
great.
Good. Oh, here we are. Excuse me.
Yes.
How do I get to Mr. Manzo's office?
So let's walk back out this way.
Okay. How are you today? Good. Good.
Yeah.
And how are you today?
I'm doing fine. I hope you are.
I'm hanging in there.
Great. Great. All right. So we're gonna go this way.
Okay.
So before you get to the exit sign, there's a door that says employee relations. You want to go right in there, okay?
Okay. Thank you. Hello. Hello, how are you? Good. Good. Hello.
Hello.
I'm Preston Mackey. I'm here to see Mr. Manzo.
Okay. Do you have that phone?
Yes.
Go ahead and have a seat down. I'll let him know you're here.
All right.
There's some chairs right over there.
What did you say?
There's some chairs right over there.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'll be leaving in a couple of minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Manzo.
How are you? Come on in.
All right. Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm hanging in there. How are you?
We're gonna go right here.
Here? Okay.
Mr. Mack.
Good afternoon.
Bryan Martin, Senior Director of Employee Relations. Come in.
And I'm Preston Mackey. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for coming to speak with us.
Where would you like me?
Right here's fine.
Right here? Okay.
Yes, sir. Excuse me. So, Mr. Mackey, do you have a understanding of what we do here in Employee Relations?
Yes, I do.
All right, and I know you spoke with Mr. Cowie a while back.
Yes.
All right, so we have some concerns that have come our way, and we just need to speak about those. And I would ask you to be very forthcoming as we talk about this, and we'll see where it takes us, okay?
And I'm willing.
Okay, and Mr. Manzo's been in touch with the folks at the school and has some information. I think he just has some questions he'd like to ask you, okay?
You may.
So, what did you talk to Mr. Cowick about?
This was some concerns that came up when I was talking about my previous employment, because I did work in a previous district, and at the time I should have kept my mouth shut regarding several employment issues I had in the district, where I really was dealing with a bunch of unfair treatment in the previous district, and his advice to me was try and keep my personal life out of the business world, since the conversation could very well be inappropriate for a school setting.
Okay. So where were you at?
I was previously in Bertie County.
Okay.
I was there about a month, but it did not work out, mainly because I did not feel I had the support of the faculty members.
What happened?
I had a lot of issues with my classroom management in the district, and a number of what I feel are unrealistic expectations placed upon me. Mainly working with 8th grade students, and especially 2 periods. I wound up resigning in the end because the trouble in the district was pretty much increasing tenfold. I mainly had to deal with no support from the administration, issues regarding my classroom management that actually went up with the superintendent. In the end, her guess was that I was on the wrong bus, wrong ticket, she put it, thinking that I was too advanced for the 8th grade students, telling me that I talk and talk too much like a college instructor, among other things, and suggests I go to a field like journalism. I end up arguing my case against her, since I want to stay on as a teacher, and she thought maybe in order to help me find my niche, as she puts it, go ahead and transfer me to an alternative school, which she did, and things went from bad to worse. Mainly with the discipline in the alternative school, I wound up resigning after a week because I knew it was not going to work out.
But when you talked to Mr. Cowick, when he called you in, that was not what you had been discussing at Harris Creek, though, right?
That's right.
So what was you talking about at Harris Creek?
At the time, there was some false allegations also made when I was in Bertie County, which had me placed on an investigatory leave. And I made mention of the false allegations made, including when I was interested in pursuing legal action against the district. And whoever made the report, the teacher made the report to the principal, misinterpreted some things that I had said. It was actually a friend that had died from a drug OD who had asked to borrow money from me on multiple occasions for bills and whatnot, and which I loaned out. What I didn't know is they was doing webcam porn for pay at the time until his mother called the school district about a month after he passed. She saw my name on several PayPal entries since he used the PayPal account like a bank account, and ended up thinking that I was paying him for services. She called the school district, which launched an investigation regarding it, which they had cleared me on.
So were you at work during the time of the investigation?
I was working during the time of the investigation. When my friend passed away, it was before I started working.
Oh, okay. But did you ever did they ever place you on like leave with pay or anything?
It was leave of pay.
For how long?
I was out 3 days.
3 days?
Yes.
And so when this all came to a head, you met with the superintendent?
That's right.
And that's when they offered you a position at alternative school?
Yes.
Was it an alternative middle school or high school?
It was actually both. The alternative school covered both middle and high school except for 6th and 9th grade. I did not have those.
How'd you end up in Bertie County?
Funny.
Are you from there?
Actually, I'm not. I'm from Hyde County originally. I went to ECU for grad and undergrad. When I started out, I was on the job search pretty much for any school district, but it so happened that my cousin and my friend, she was actually going to take the 8th grade teacher position that I ended up getting in the end, but she was not able to because of her commute. She lived in Elizabeth City, but she recommended the principal interview me in her stead, and so I went in for the interview and ended up getting the job.
What did you do after you left?
After I left, I actually continued work as an Uber driver, and I mostly worked in that capacity for about a year and a half before, unfortunately, when my car was repossessed, I did have a bunch of breakdowns. I also did have a brief stint working for Aflac. And
How'd you get to Wake County then?
I actually have family that live in Wake County. Even though I'm from Hyde, I moved to Wake County, to Raleigh actually in January 09. So I'm actually going to come up on 8 years now.
So the Harris Creek thing, did you get a do not use for that?
I did not.
Okay. So when you and I talked on the phone briefly at the beginning, I told you you had a do not use from Fuller Elementary, right? You remember that?
Which came in the mail not too long ago, and I have it with me.
Yeah. So what do you have to say about that?
I actually am disputing that one, mainly due to the conversation I had with the principal. One of the points that was made, which I dispute in its entirety anyway, is kissing the student on the temple. In regards to hugging the student, this was actually when I was on the phone with the principal. She told me that it was a report made the day after I subbed, that on the playground recess, I knelt down, hugged one of the kindergarten students, and kissed him on the forehead. If I'm moving around on the playground while the other two teachers that were supervising were also out, so I'm mainly supervising, and usually you saw how tall I am when I walked in. I usually get down on the kindergarten's nurse eye level if I'm speaking to them about issue going on. That's just my usual practice. Whenever I sub, try to be on the students or the younger students' eye level.
So wait, I'm a little confused. What are you disputing? Number one or number two?
On this form, you mean?
Yeah.
I'm actually disputing both on this form, and
So you're saying that you did not hug any kids?
as they were coming in the room, no. What I was getting ready to say was, in regards to the playground, when the principal talked to me on the phone, it was a couple of kindergarten students that run me after I was speaking to one of them and had hugged me. That one did happen with the kindergarten students hugging me.
Okay.
No way would I ever kiss a student, and if any student had hugged me, I was in the line of sight of the two teachers that were out. So I would also think that no way in the world am I going to openly go and kiss a student when two other teachers are supervising.
So why would the teacher say this?
Your guess is as good as mine. But what was concerning me though was the do not use form, the details listed in it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know when exactly this one transpired or supposedly transpired, but I do know that if it was at the start of this school day, that's what I'm interpreting from the details saying hugging all the kindergarten students into the classroom as they were entering. I know for sure that was at the start of the day. That was actually not true because I actually never touched any student as they were coming in the room at the start of the day. And there were actually two teachers in the classroom at the time.
Who were the teachers?
Gail Lanphier was the TA, and Catherine Wangerman. I don't know if that's the first name, but I do remember the last name, Wangerman.
Okay.
They were both in the classroom at the time. Let me mute this. I'm sorry. And the other thing that had me wondering, and this may be a side issue, is when the report was made too, because I know after recess there were 2 hours left with the students, and it actually surprised me that I even learned about the report. Maybe it's just me speaking from an adult standpoint, because even though I don't have children, I do have a nephew that's in second grade. And I was even thinking, had I even seen something like that, I wouldn't bang on the principal's door the day of, if not within minutes.
All right, let's go back a little bit here. So
Yes,
I did talk to the assistant in the room. She sent me an email, and she said there were some concerns because you left the room a few times without telling where you were going and when you would be back, and you also used the restroom in the classroom, which does not lock while the students were in the classroom. So why'd you leave the room?
I had actually reported to the office at the time too. I actually was bitten by a spider earlier that day too, and was having issues with that one. I also have
Why didn't you tell this lady?
a point well taken. I know I did say I'll be back in a
What are you
minute.
going to the bathroom in the classroom for?
And wait a minute, the bathroom in the classroom? Not. And she said this happened when the students were in the room?
Mm-hmm. He used the class restroom, which does not lock while the students were in the classroom.
Not unless I went to get tissue out the room or something, or to blow my nose.
So,
And I generally will, if I have to use the restroom for other purposes, I go out to the staff restroom.
so let's see, what day were you there? What day
I was there on the
third?
3rd.
So this is what was reported. This was reported the next day. Yesterday, as the children were coming back from electives, the sub was hugging them as they came in, but one student he hugged and gave him a kiss on the side of his head. And they identified that student as James. And this was somebody who was right across the hall that reported this to the principal.
And that was not true.
Okay, well, why would they report that?
I've absolutely no clue as to why that they would report that, but I do know for certain that no student was hugged coming back from electives.
How do you know? How do you know that?
I remember that day fully, and I already mentioned if any students were hugged at recess when that happened, and recess was after that the electives, a couple hours later at least.
Okay. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I don't know why this lady would just write this out of the blue and report it to the principal. I did talk to her on the phone as well. She was very clear. She said she had a clear line of sight of the kids coming back from electives. So, you've not been here very long, and you've been up here twice.
Which I understand.
So, Mr. Mackey, let's talk about that. So you were in Bertie County. You were there, what, 2 months, you said?
Roughly 2 months.
That's a pretty quick trip through. So that would indicate that there were significant concerns. It ended up with the superintendent, concerns about classroom management. You left there. You came to Wake, and almost immediately after starting here, you're in employee relations because you're telling these stories at Harris Creek about your situation in Bertie County, which hurts your reputation, hurts your ability to go to that school and be a substitute teacher. You've called into employee relations. Mr. Cowick talked with you.
Which I own up to.
Mm-hmm.
Which I own up to.
Mm-hmm. And then I sent you a letter. You remember that letter?
Yes, I do. I still have it in my email.
Okay. And it says that you need to be cautious in your judgment in the school setting, and always be conscious of being a good role model and not doing anything to call into question your integrity or that of the school system. Okay. And now, a month later, here we are again. And while you're saying I didn't do it, I got an adult witness that says very clearly I saw it happen. So you understand my concern?
Yes, I do.
So you said that, let's see, the Human Resources Director in Bertie County, what's her name?
Ella Fields Bunch.
Ella Fields Bunch, that's right. I've met Miss Bunch. We're part of the same professional organization.
Are you?
And what was it you said she told you about the bus and the ticket?
About what?
You said something about
Wrong bus, wrong ticket.
Was that not her that said that? Or
It was the
the
superintendent.
superintendent said that, okay. Who's your superintendent in Bertie County?
She's actually retired now, but her name was Elaine White.
Okay. So she told you that it was wrong bus, wrong ticket, i.e. this is not the right place for you? I'm starting to have the same feeling about Wake County, Mr. Mackey.
I actually don't feel the same way. And one of the main reasons I mentioned that in terms of the wrong bus, wrong ticket line with Bertie, also when I went in, note that I was actually not an education major at the time either. I went as lateral entry.
Mm-hmm.
However, since I left Bertie, I completed the NC Teach program at NC State for coursework toward my teaching license.
But that doesn't change the fact that you've been here just a couple months and you're already on your second trip through Human Resources after lasting 2 months in Bertie County. That just seems to be an indication, Mr. Mackey, that public schools may not be the right place for you. So I think you need to think about whether this is the right place for you. What do you think?
I actually do not feel in agreement. I understand what you're saying, but I also do consider education my passion. And one of the main reasons I even came on as a substitute teacher, when I applied for several jobs, I had actually gone for several interviews, but end up losing out simply because of the experience. And several administrators who followed up with me had actually told me they went with a teacher who had more experience than I did.
That's not really that's not really relevant to our conversation today, Mr. Mackey.
I'm sorry.
The thing we're here talking about is your judgment. You used poor judgment in your sharing of information at Harris Creek. You got a letter that said be very cautious. Now I have a very believable staff member saying she witnessed you doing something, again, that would show poor judgment in the workplace. And I hear you saying, I don't remember doing that, but this lady has no reason to make up this story. She believes firmly that she saw this. So regardless of all the other pieces, again, 2 months in Bertie, and now you've been here 2 months and already been through human resources twice. I'm just not sure that public schools are the right place for you, Mr. Mackey.
I do feel like they are, though.
Okay.
Strongly.
Well, so where we are, Mr. Mackey, I don't make final decisions about employees. I report to the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Mr. Doug Tillman. And at this point, you're frozen in the subsystem. You can't sub, right?
Yes.
And it'll stay that way for the foreseeable future. I have a meeting with Mr. Tillman later this week, and at that point we'll talk about it and get his thoughts on where he wants to go with it. But I got a feeling the answer is going to be that Mr. Mackey doesn't need to sub in Wake County Schools anymore. Now that's not my decision. Ultimately, it's Mr. Tillman's, but that would be my recommendation. So I just need to share with you that there's a serious concern here. Now, if you don't want that to happen, if you don't want me to, have to do the letter from Mr. Tillman saying that you've been removed from the substitute teacher list, you always have the option, if you choose to do so, to just say, at your request, we'll take your name off the list. That way you're not getting terminated, you just get to take off the list at your request. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm not telling you to do that. But if that's what you want, we can certainly do that. But if I haven't heard from you by Thursday, when I meet with Mr. Tillman, that's going to have to be our discussion.
And even if I give to go ahead, take me off the list, this means I cannot be employed in Wake County either.
So what's going to happen is, if I haven't heard anything from you by Thursday when I meet Mr. Tillman, I'm going to share this information with him, everything we've talked about today, and my recommendation that you not be a sub to the school system anymore. And he would make a final decision as to whether or not he agrees with that. And if he agrees that he doesn't think you need to be a sub with the school system, you get a letter from Mr. Tillman saying that you've been removed from the list of approved substitutes for Wake County Schools, and you couldn't sub for us anymore. But again, that's not my decision, it's his.
And in regards to if I give to go ahead and remove myself from the sub list,
Then we're done.
and I also cannot come back either way.
No, if you ask that your name be removed from the sub list, then you're no longer a substitute teacher, you're no longer an employee of the school system.
And what I'm saying is I cannot apply for employment in the district, or
You can apply, but just be real honest with Mr. Mackey. Anytime somebody applies to come to work for us, one of the first things we're going to look at is employment history. The history in Bertie County and the history now that you're in Wake County are going to make it difficult for you to be hired as a teacher. And that's regardless of whether you resign or whether you're terminated. I think the concerns that we have at this point are going to be a real hindrance to you being able to find a full-time position with Wake County Schools.
if I wind up resigning, what's going to file?
I'll just do a letter that accepts your resignation, just says that we met, we talked about some concerns, we talked about the do not use, because you do have a do not use from, what school was it?
Fuller.
Yeah, that you have a do not use from Fuller, and that you made a decision that was in your best interest to resign. Won't go into any more details.
So so all this pretty much sealed if I end up giving my resignation.
So the do not use is already in your file.
I knew that was a given.
And that's in your file. So my letter would just say that you chose to resign your position. It doesn't put any more information into your file. And your file is by law confidential. People outside the school system can't see it. So if you apply to work other places outside of Wake County Schools, they don't get to see what's in your personnel file. The only people that can see what's in your personnel file would be you, or people who supervise you, or if you apply for a position with the school system, people who are considering you for employment would be able to look at your past personnel file. But outside the school system, nobody gets to see that unless you give it to them.
I will take all this into consideration and go on Thursday.
Okay. Let's say that again. Now I'm not sure.
I will take this into consideration and go from there by Thursday.
Okay. Why don't you grab my card right there? There's my business card. If you decide that you want to do a resignation, again, it's entirely up to you. You can just send me an email. That's fine. You can just send me an email and say, please remove my name from the list of substitute teachers for Wake County, and at that point you'll be done. But that's entirely up to you. Okay? Anything else you want to ask us or tell us?
Well, I've already said my piece. I already mentioned the concerns I had with do not use letter, and also with when the report was made.
Okay. All right. Well, if you think of anything else that you want to ask us or tell us, you can send me an email or give me a call, okay?
Also, since you mentioned Bertie, will you end up calling that district at least?
At this point, I have no reason to call it.
Then I guess there's nothing else to say.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Also, before we go, the adult who made the report was the one across the hall, she said?
It doesn't really matter. She had a clear line of sight, whoever it was.
Because I have absolutely no clue who the adult was, and the principal, when I spoke her, was telling me a staff member that said they saw you.
Yes.
Turn to what he said, she said. Goodbye.
It's out this way, this way. Everybody gets turned around. It's this way and out the door.
No, you do not want to. No, you do not.
Screw them. Screw them.